So you guys might not know this, but my passion for storytelling and video actually started with photography. Started when I was a teenager. My dad taught me how to take photos. Well, I recently traveled to Iceland. We were there for 5 days. It was me and my best friend, and I took my little tiny camera with me. I figured I would show you guys my pictures from Iceland while I go through and edit them. So oftentimes when I'm taking a picture, it's not coming out exactly how it felt or how it looked in the moment. So when I'm editing in Lightroom, I'm just trying to make it feel how it looked and felt in the moment when I was there. So here, this is one of the first pictures that I took. This one is from Vik, which is a little town on the southern coast of Iceland. This is a church that sits up on top of a hill. Let's see if I have a picture of the up on top of a hill. Further away, picture of the church on top of a hill. A beautiful town. This right here is a black sand beach. It was gorgeous. So what I'll start to do is with each picture, some things that I kind of always do. It's a little bit bright, so I'll bring the highlights down. I'll bring some of the shadows up. I'll make the whites just a little bit more poppy. I'll bring down the blacks as well. These are all like colors and hues that we're talking about, Bring the clarity up a little bit, make it nice and crisp. You can see some of the changes already, and it's looking more like it looked like in person. It was very bright. It was very vibrant. This church was really cool. There were a ton of people there, but it had a cool history to it. They built this church because the town, when it was first built, was a couple of kilometers away from the nearest church, and the townspeople there didn't want to be traveling that far to go to church every single week, so they built one for themselves. And they built it on top of this amazing hill here in the middle of town. So that's basically it for a picture like that. You can see not a huge difference. I just kind of made the colors pop a little bit more. You'll see a bigger difference in some of the other photos, but this was also Vik. This was from the front of the church. So let's see. In this picture, I was basically standing right in front of the church here when I took this photo. And so in this one, I just try to pull those highlights down, and you can see a big difference in the sky here, right? Your phone would do this automatically. Your phone would take that picture and say, oh, you would like the sky to be blue and you would like the grass to be green. My camera doesn't do that automatically. It gives me the creative freedom to do that here. And so that's what I do. Make the grass a little bit brighter because that's what it looked like in person. And I make the sky a little bit less white and more blue because that's what it looked like in person. And then I should make everything a little bit more fun. And the thing you can't see in these pictures is all of these birds. There were hundreds of seagulls and birds flying around these cliffs. It was beautiful. And we got some perfect sunny weather. One thing I always do with my photos is make the horizon line straight. That's something a lot of people mess up. I mess it up even as I'm snapping photos, having a good time. So I always go back and rotate the photo so that horizon line is perfectly straight. That's what our eyes see, or our eyes really are pleased by a photo that sees the way that our eyes would see a lot of times. And so that's why the horizon line being straight is a big deal there. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is the town of Vik, right? It was along one of these little streets where there was a really good soup place, and they sold Icelandic lamb stew, which is something they had in a lot of different places. Super good. I loved it because it was warm. It was quite cold when we were there. It was basically in the 40s for the most of the time we were there, which wasn't too bad, but it was pretty warm when we left Spokane. Or I left Spokane. My friend came from the East Coast, but it was colder for sure than it had been here. That's okay. It was worth it. I got to get out all of my winter gear. So the other thing I'll do is a lot of times pictures in the same setting. I know that I personally like them to be edited similar ways. So I'll go through and say, I really like the edit of that picture, and I'll just paste the edits onto this one because it's going to be about the same. And then I'll make minor adjustments. So this one needs to be a little bit brighter, so I'll pop up the exposure a little bit. Might even go in and turn up some of those greens, make the greens really pop there. We actually did go down to the black sand beach here. And we walked maybe from here-ish down to here. And while we were on the beach, we found this old shoe that had been washed into sea at some point and then washed back onto shore. And it was like a slipper, like a sandal. And it had turned into an artificial coral reef. It was crazy. It was full of mussels and clams linked onto it. And it was alive, but it had been washed up on the sea. Jenna and I were like, what do we do with this? Do we try to put it back in the ocean? And we Googled it. Apparently, you're supposed to just leave it. If it got to the shore, it likely will get swept back into sea when the tide comes back up. So it was interesting. It looked crazy. I didn't take a picture of it with my camera, so I don't have a picture here. I took a picture with my phone, though. But all right, so this is later that day. Okay, so we were in Vic in the morning. We drove into Vic. We had driven the night before to Diamond Beach, which was a little bit further. And then we went on a glacier tour. It was an ice cave tour, so they took us to the Katla Glacier. I might not be saying that correctly. Katla Great Glacier. And this was the drive there. So this was kind of before we got to the glacier, but you can see the runoff coming from the glacier. It was crazy. The colors there, the difference. You can see, I mean, the dark black of the volcanic land up to the mountains that were just bright green from all of the rain from the season. And then as we got closer, I'll show you the next picture, is the brilliant white in contrast to the black ashen volcano of the glacier. So this was the drive there. We had to cross a few streams and get through some mountains and over some fields. Then we got to this glacier here. Absolutely gorgeous. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste a lot of these because I know that for the most part, the same edits that I want to make are going to happen for all of these. But take a look at this. You can see all the layers of the volcanic ash that have been compacted into the glacier. They say that happens over hundreds and hundreds of years. And if you look really closely in this picture, there's this small in the picture, but huge waterfall coming off of the glacier here. And so they had us put microspikes on the bottom of our shoes because we actually did get to go up onto the glacier there. And so that was just to keep us sturdy. Mine didn't really fit all that well. They were kind of loose and jiggly under my foot. And so I did almost fall a couple of times. I caught myself every time, though. It was crazy, the different colors, right? Like it was white in comparison to the dark black surrounding it when you were far away from it. But then up close, it had this very blue hue and tint to it, which was super interesting to see. So the tour guide basically explained that as they get volcanic eruptions, that those layers of ash get embedded into the glacier. So it will be glacier forming years over years over years. They'll get a year of a volcanic eruption that will leave a layer of volcanic sediment over the top, and then more glacier will continue piling up over the years. And so every layer of volcanic ash there is a story of a volcanic eruption at some point in this glacier's history. This whole glacier underneath it is a volcano. So that's why it was so interspersed with all of that volcanic ash. Here you can see some perspective from both ways. This was in the cave. Down there is about halfway through the walk that we had to walk to get to the base of the glacier. Here is where we parked. The tour guide was telling us that where we parked is where the base of the glacier was just 5 years ago. So this glacier has melted to the point of being that far away, a 10-minute plus walk in just 5 years. He said it is crazy how much melting has been happening in their glaciers in Iceland. It's something that's been featured in documentaries just because of how aggressive the melting is. So that was very interesting to see, especially with how much runoff we were walking through and how much water was coming off of them. This was the car, truck, van, whatever you want to call it, that we drove in. When I say we, I mean our tour guide drove us in this van to go see the ice caves. Behind it, you can see the really cool mountain. It was beautiful. It was just crazy to see the contrast of colors. I know I said that already, but it was really, really neat. Big van, though. Got us to the right place. Okay, so after we did the ice cave, we went back to Vic, the town, and went to the black sand beach, like I mentioned. That we were standing right there and the birds were up above us. Like I said, I really liked these rocks. I don't know why. They were just cool. The water was breaking against the rocks and making cool sound. Cool. So we stayed near Vic that night, and then the next morning we woke up and we started heading back towards Reykjavik. This was a waterfall along the way. This is the start of a 10-mile hike through what they call basically Waterfall Way. We didn't get to do the hike because we had to make another tour, unfortunately, but we got to walk a little bit in and we got to go to the top of this waterfall, so that was very cool. Lots of people there for sure, but that's okay. It was fun. The sheep. Oh my gosh. The sheep were something else. Okay. I love this picture because there were sheep everywhere. One of our tour guides from the lava cave, which you will see here, or the lava tunnel, which you'll see here in a second, he said there are more sheep than people in Iceland, which is hilarious. He also said sheep are the most deadly animal to tourists. Crazy. They're not aggressive. The reason they're deadly to tourists is because they jet out in front of cars and then cars hit them. And so they made a lot of sheep jokes because of just how many there were. Another reason why the Icelandic lamb stew is so popular. Lamb chops. There was a lot of lamb in the cuisine there, and there was a lot of fish in the cuisine there. Makes sense. An island with sheep on it. Totally makes sense. This was the second waterfall in to the 10-mile hike. It was not even a quarter mile in, but it was up a ton of stairs. We got to the top of the first waterfall by walking up all of these stairs. It was crazy. A little bit tiring, a little bit unstable. The stairs weren't necessarily super stable. They wobbled a little bit on the way up, but we made it, so it's okay. And then just more sheep. What's funny about this one is there's these sheep, but then there's also all of these in the background too. There's just so many everywhere. No matter where you drive, you're just like, there's more sheep. There's more sheep. Okay, so from here, we did a little bit of that waterfall hike, and then we moved on to the lava tunnel. I only took a couple of pictures in the lava tunnel, but I picked this one. I don't know how well I'll be able to... Oops. I'm clicking all the wrong buttons. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to make this one look, but we'll try. There were so many cool colors in this lava tunnel. There's apparently a whole life form in the lava tunnel. Like it's a bacteria that grows in the lack of light and excessive moisture of a lava tunnel. And it's this like brilliant white that covers some of the black and reds of the rock. And it's alive. It's like a life form. And they, meaning scientists, are using caves like this and tunnels like this to study that life form because it's one of the most primitive forms of life. And they say basically that they can find something similar on other planets like Mars. And if they do, it's... Oh, there's another cat. Sorry. Come here. You gotta get out of the way. Oh, you gotta get out of the way. This is Ollie. He also likes getting attention. So, that makes sense. Okay, you moved the laptop. Gotta fix it now. Hold on.
Yo.
Okay, there we go. Anyway, lava tunnel. Super cool. That picture definitely didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but again, more of a memory. They don't all have to be perfect. So we did the lava tunnel. We continued on back to Reykjavik. It was a lot of driving. I think we did a total of 10 hours of driving between going up and back down the southern coast, and we did it over the course of a couple of days. This was back in Reykjavik, right in the middle of downtown. Their big church. It was beautiful. We got to go all the way up to the very top here. They have an elevator that goes up to the top, and then you can see the bells as they ring on every quarter hour, which was really cool. I hate loud noises. I always have. And so I actually went downstairs, and my friend stayed upstairs to watch the bells ding, and I was like, you can do this one. I believe in you. This is the inside of that church. And the downstairs. Beautiful organ here. It was really neat. And then the view from the top. It's just beautiful. This is downtown Reykjavik. You can see all the colors. All their little houses were so colorful. It was so beautiful. Oh, I kept this picture in because it's nothing special. I just took a picture from the top looking down. But the reason I took this picture is because if you zoom in really close, really close, you can see a cat. There were so many cats in Reykjavik. It was crazy. They had t-shirts about how many cats they had in their downtown. They're just roaming everywhere. They're all friendly. We pet this one and several others. This one looks like my cat Socks, the one that you not just saw, but earlier was running around. It was adorable. And they literally, again, had t-shirts. They were called the cats of downtown Reykjavik. It was really funny. Okay, so then we spent the evening just walking around Reykjavik, doing tourist shops, the whole thing. And then the next day, my friend had to go to the airport. I stayed an extra day. So she left this day, and then I stayed one extra day. We started that day with the Blue Lagoon. I didn't bring my camera in. I didn't even bring my phone. I don't think we have any pictures of us at the Blue Lagoon. It was beautiful, though. It was very nice. And then we had to make our way back to the airport to drop Jenna back off. And so on the way, we basically took the long, circuitous route around and saw a couple of things. One of those things was this lighthouse here. It was kilometers away from any sort of town or civilization. And so the people that had to live here and work the lighthouse were extremely remote. It was a really, really hard job for them. So it was crazy. There was a bunch of different museum exhibits set up, basically explaining all the different lives that had been lost and shipwrecks that had happened in this specific bay over the past few centuries. So that was pretty powerful. You can see just how powerful some of these waves are, right? This is a very rocky area, and the waves are coming in and just smacking into those rocks, making huge splashes. It was really, really cool. Very, very cold. So I dropped Jenna back off at the airport, and she made her way back to the United States. I had one more night in Iceland by myself. So I spent the afternoon and evening walking around downtown Reykjavik again. It was really pretty. I got to see a little bit more of the west center of downtown spots. So these were some of the beautiful, colorful houses that you could see from the top of the church the day before. And then spend the night. And then I woke up the next morning, and before I went to the airport, I did a hike into the natural hot springs about 45 minutes outside of Reykjavik. So it was a bit of a drive. This was really cool. This river was flowing and warm and steaming, and all around it was bright green grasses. I mean, it was crazy how green the grass was right next to that little river, but not even on either end of it, right? And so, as we got further away from the river, it got more and more brown. So that was really interesting to see. And it kind of stuck that way for really the entirety of the hike. Right next to those thermal spots, things were super green and super beautiful. This was some steaming thermal spots leading down into a waterfall. These were boiling hot waters. And so the spot where you could actually bathe, which I didn't take any pictures of, I threw my phone and my camera down and I jumped in the water. I relaxed for like an hour and a half. It was incredible. But that spot is a combination of the glacier fed water, which is extremely cold, obviously, and then the thermal fed water, which is boiling hot. And that combination made a perfect spot that was hot tub temperature, basically, to relax and hang out in. So that was beautiful. And then, so this is the way in, and then I stayed for about an hour and a half, and then I got back out. I changed back out of my bathing suit and into my hiking clothes, and as soon as I got changed to walk back, it started pouring rain. It was quite wet. I got soaking wet, but it only lasted about 10 minutes, and then the rain passed, and it was brilliantly sunny again. So sunny that by the time I got to the car, I wasn't even wet anymore. My pants had dried, my jacket had dried, but the hike out with the sun right after that rain was gorgeous. Everything was sparkling. The green was greener. The blue was bluer in the sky. The whole pathway was lit kind of angelically is kind of the best way I can describe it. And then in the distance, you can see the ocean as well. So it was a beautiful hike back, even though I was a little bit wet from the rain. And that was basically the last thing I did. From there, I just kind of slowly made my way back to the airport. I found lunch and then got through security and came home. So that was my trip. It was really, really fun. These are just some of the pictures that I took, kind of the best ones that I liked the most. And I'll post them on Facebook at some point and you can see them there too. So yeah.